Hello everyone, welcome to the channel, welcome to AI Coding with K. My name is Kshitij Agarwal and I'm your host again. And a quick intro about me. Uh, I've been in the software development industry for close to 19 years now, building AI and mobile products. Currently, I consult startups on building AI products using AI. So, I hope everybody is doing well. The last previous scheduled live sessions did not go as planned because of some family health issues. So, we are back. We are back on schedule. We are going to talk about in our series of helping junior developers how to use AI to the most efficient way. And let's begin. So, in this episode, by the way, this is episode 3 of the Course 1 series. This episode, we will be talking about building the task context and how you are going to help AI coding agents build the right mental model, build the right context in order to be the most effective. We have been talking about effectiveness in our previous episodes, and that is going to be the theme that we will be continuing with. And today we are going to talk about how do you build a context around your task, and how do you help your coding agent in gaining more knowledge, more information about the code base. And yeah, we'll cover all those things. So this is the path that we have been following. In the first episode we talked about the workflow. In the second episode we talked about how to build a task brief, and in the third episode we are going to talk about how do you go about reading through the code base and effectively build a task context. So in episode 2, like I mentioned, we talked about task brief, the student task app that we have been talking about as an example. We had talked about how do you add labels of overdue and upcoming and things like that. So how do you build a task that has all the relevant information, all the things that it needs to do, and what it should avoid doing. So these are the things that we did in episode 2. In episode 3, we are going to talk about how do you give the AI agent information about the code base so that it can apply the changes where the changes need to go. So that's what we are going to be talking about. So episode 3, build the context packet. So this is a term that I wanted to introduce with this episode. So we have been talking about how do you build a task context. Okay, but what it is essentially is building a context packet, because this is the context information that we are going to give to the AI agent related to the task. So this is an information packet that we are building. Okay, so this is more of a technical term, but the title of building a task context is what I wanted to, is the overall topic, and this is the slightly more technical term for that same idea. Okay, so first of all, what is the difference between a task brief and an agent context? Okay, so in the previous episode, we talked about task brief. Task brief is what needs to happen, what are the problems that we are solving, for whom we are solving the problem, what exactly needs to be done. Okay, what are the boundaries, what are the constraints, what are the things that it should not be doing, what are some of the examples of the existing code base that we can give and tell it that okay, follow this process. Okay, so this is what we did in episode 2. That was task brief. Agent context is basically telling the agent where does the change actually belong, which are the files that we are going to touch today, or which are the methods that we are going to touch today that we will be updating. So what are the files, models, that what are the tests that needs to be updated, what are the project conventions and architectures that the project already has that it need to follow. So those are the things that we are going to add on onto the task, which will become a part of the context packet that I just mentioned. And this context packet we are going to give to the agent to build the agent context. So agent will know about the task in terms of where in the existing code base the changes are going to reside. It could be the files, the methods, and so on and so forth, the tests. Okay, so now you would ask, why do we even need to do that? We have already spent a lot of time building the task brief. We have given a lot of detail in the task brief already. Why do we need to add more information on top of the task brief, which is the context packet? Why do we even need to do that? So the answer to that question is, increase the accuracy of the agent of what it needs to do, or rather where it needs to go. Okay, what it needs to do we have already given task brief, but we haven't really told, or we haven't told the agent where it needs to make the change, or the agent right now doesn't know where the agent change needs to be made. Okay, so adding that information increases the accuracy of knowing exactly where the change needs to land. Okay, it also increases the effectiveness, because now you have added that additional information that the system requires, okay, to know where the change needs to happen, which all methods needs to be updated, which all tests need to be updated, what all changes that in the UI, if your feature is touching the UI side, what are the UI files that need to be updated. Okay, and what is the view model in terms of Android development. We have the view model, where are the business logic reside. So which method of the view model needs to be updated to accommodate for that change. So accuracy, effectiveness, and the third point is drift control. Okay, because we are increasing the effectiveness, because we are telling the agent exactly where it needs to go, it is not going to veer away from what needs to be done. Because again, there is a term which is called LLM drift, okay, or context drift. What it basically means is that you have given a vague request, build me a add a label to the task system of the app. Okay, now because it doesn't know exactly what it needs to do, like we have talked before, it is going to make some assumptions. Now those assumptions may or may not be correct, most likely not correct. Okay, and because it has to gather all this information on its own, make a lot of decision on its own, do a lot of assumption on its own, it is going to drift from the actual path that it was supposed to go. It most likely will drift into something that it was not supposed to do, in a file where it was not supposed to go. So that is called context drift, and adding this information beforehand reduces that drifts, because now agent doesn't have to assume which files to touch. It knows exactly where it needs to go. Okay, and the last part is that I call it reviewability. Okay, because this basically gives the AI agent exact information in terms of what all files it needs to review, in terms of, okay, these are the changes that need to be done. And once the change is made, we will actually talk about this, how do you do code reviews. And then at that point, having that information already in the system is very, very helpful. Okay, so this is the reason why we are doing it. Okay, just you again, it's not really something we are doing just for the heck of it. It is not going to be in vain. It is going to be very, very helpful when you are actually going to make the changes. It is going to increase accuracy, effectiveness, and drift control for our LLM agent. Okay, now next point is, where does this additional context comes from? Okay, so one is the provided context and the other one is discovered context. Okay, so let me explain what each of these things are. Provided context is, for example, when we created the task brief, that was the provided context. We told AI agent this needs to be done. These are the boundaries, these are the constraints, these are the UI files, view model files, business logic, backend database. These are the things that you need to touch and not touch. So these are the things that we have already providing as part of the task brief. Okay, business rules, anything that we are telling it not to do, all of that, all the information that we are giving from our side is the provided context. And again, on the other side, discovered context is what all information the agent needs to discover in order to build that agent context. Which are the exact files and methods that change need to be made into. Okay, what are the test cases that it needs to update? What are the test suites it needs to add more information to? What are the UI changes that it needs to make? What are the database table changes it needs to update, add or remove? Okay, and all of this will come from the existing code base, existing project that you have. Okay, this is where the agent is going to discover the context, and we are going to actually help discover this context. We are going to help the AI agent discover this context. So the thing with context is that many people, even experienced developers, don't really understand is that context is not about more is better. We have been talking about adding things, more and more information to the context window, giving as much information to the LLM as possible. But this is very important. The information you give has to be good quality information and not just give the whole project to the LLM and just say, figure out where the change needs to be. Okay, this is the difference. You don't give the whole project to the AI agent and say, figure out where the change needs to be. The changes, you have to tell AI agent which all files exactly needs to be updated, which all methods needs to be updated. Okay, so it is always quality over quantity. Remember, all AI agents have a limited context window. It can vary anywhere from 256,000 tokens to 1,000,000 tokens. Okay, but it is a limited context window. You have to fill the context window with only the most relevant information. If you add stuff that is not required, for example, you're making changes to the database but you are adding the context of the UI in the context window, it is not going to be helpful, and it is actually going to degrade the quality of the change that AI agent needs to do. So that is why it is always important that whatever context you build, first thing is you build a context, you give as much information as possible, and B, you give it quality information, the precise information it needs to do. Otherwise, the whole point of accuracy and effectiveness is not really going to work. Okay, so yeah, this is about increasing the effectiveness and trustworthiness of the context that you are building. Okay, so the term is here, I want to again kind of introduce a source grounded context, and this is a very important term and very frequently used term whenever you talk to anybody who is in the AI building platform. Okay, we talk about grounding AI agents. Grounding is nothing but telling the AI agent not to fly too much in the sky. You have to be very stable in terms of don't move here and there. Focus on what needs to be done. And that focus in this term, source grounded context, which means you are telling that the focus for the AI agent is going to come from the existing source code. So you are using the existing source code to tell the AI agent that these are the files and the methods and the tests that you need to focus on. Okay, so this is basically what it means for source grounded context. You're building context from the source code so that the AI agent remains grounded, it remains focused. Okay, so here are three kind of context types. So a confirmed context is, in this case, is the source code, the tests, the documents, the configurations, and the current project state. These are confirmed, this is already there. Okay. Inferred context is whatever you are giving or whatever it is figuring out as part of gaining more information. Okay, and unknown is what the your project is not already providing to the AI agent. Maybe you are implementing a new feature and a new API, and that API is not already there in the code base. So that is an unknown context that it needs to build. Okay, it might have to hit some online documentation to gather that information. But it is again a grounded context. It is the context needs to be focused on what needs to be done. Okay, so coming back to the example that we have been talking about from day one is the study sprint task. Okay, so a quick recap. In the previous episode, we created a task brief about how to add a due date label for each task card. Okay, the labels were done overdue, due date, and upcoming, and then we have completed task will always show done. There is no reminders, no sorting, no notifications, and calendar sync. So this is the task brief that we created in the previous episode. Now, the question in terms of context for that task brief. So this is the example of what is the task model, and when I say model, it is not the AI model, it is the task data packet. Sorry, let me rephrase. It is the task class inside the code base. So a task is made up of a title, it is made up of a description, it has a due date, it has a label. Okay, when it was created, when it was modified. So these are the information that you are saving, that is part of the task model. So we tell the context, where is the task model. Okay, again, talking more in terms of the Android compose side of things in this example, where is the task composable, the UI of that task, because we need to update the UI for that task label. So where is that composable? What is the due date logic? This is the business logic side of things. Okay, does it already exist or not? Okay, what are the similar business rules that are there? Business by business rules, it basically means the logic that is governing how the tasks behave. Is there already there? Is something already there? If not, what needs to be added? And again, Last part is what is the tests that need to be updated. Where are the tests for that particular task model, the business logic, and all those things. Okay, so continuing with an example, the task.kt file contains the domain model. The task.kt, it is the composable file which contains the compose UI. The MVI state is stored in the task list view model, and then you have the test inside the business rules, and the tests are inside the label policy test.kt. So basically what we are doing now is telling the AI agent that these are the 4 files that it needs to go and hit. Okay, so these files will tell the AI agent exactly what where the changes needs to happen. Okay, and here is a very quick example of what it looks like. So your task is in the center, which is show done overview and other labels on the task card, and the files which it needs to hit, and the method that it needs to update. So all of those things, basically it is a representation of what a task context is doing here. Okay, it goes through all the files, it figures out which, or rather we tell the agent which all files are there that needs to be updated. These are the methods that it figures out while it does the it goes through the files. Okay, so this is a kind of a ready-made prompt where we are telling the AI agent about the task and its context. So the first portion is the task brief that we have been talking about till now, the task, the rules, the known goals. Okay, that we have already covered. Below that is what we are additional, the task context information that we are giving. It is the task, the files that it needs to hit, exactly all the Kotlin files, the test files, the UI, compose UI files, and the view model files that it needs to hit. We are giving exactly all the information as part of this singular prompt. Okay, and last but not the least, before you code, give me a reading order, checks and similar patterns, and any unknowns. Okay, so you are not immediately after giving all this information, you are not really giving immediately executing or telling the AI to start making any changes, but rather you would ask the AI agent to read these files, figure out if you have everything or not. Okay, in this file, so there are some things which are confirmed, some things which are inferred, and some things which are unknown. We are asking the AI agent to figure out what is it which is still unknown for you. Is there anything which you feel is still missing, and that we can provide additionally. Okay, so that is why we are not going to immediately start coding. We are going to consult with the AI agent and find out, are there any patterns or are there any unknowns that you can use or that are still missing. Okay, so here is an example of what it means. So the claim of what is confirmed, inferred, and unknown. The task where it needs to go is confirmed. Okay, what labels that it needs to add is inferred from the view model MVI pattern, and what is the due date behavior, that is unknown. So if you don't give that UI due date UI behavior, it is not really going to understand how it needs to behave properly. So if you have this, it is not an unknown anymore. Okay, but if you don't get this falls under the category of unknown, what it would not know from the source code, from the information that you are telling. So unless you give it, it is going to make assumptions, it is going to assume the implementation and the business logic. Okay, so this is again an example of, this is the task model that I was talking about, where the title of the task, the due date, and whether it is completed or not. Okay, then we have the UI model. This is the composable that we had, and Basically these are the things that we are telling to the AI agent additionally to the task brief. That's the whole point. You told what it needs to do in the task brief. In the context, we are telling where it needs to do. These are basically the files examples where it needs to make that change. Okay. So what is a bad context and a better context? So I quickly wanted to talk about this. Bad context is add due dates. Here is the whole project. Just take it and run with it. You just give the whole 50 file. There are 50 files in the project, or maybe more if it's a big project, and you give all that information to AI, and you let the AI say you go figure it out. Okay, and you just say implement my task. That's it. Better context is you give a task brief, you tell what are the relevant files that needs to be updated, what are the patterns that it should already see, what are the test files, all the necessary information. Okay, and so the context packet that now we are building. So it is basically just giving you more and more examples of how this agent context and context packet will look like. So we have the behavioral rules, we have the inferred rules. Behavior rules are, okay, this is how the task, this is what the task implementation needs to behave like. Okay, you are changing the behavior of the app by building that feature, and what that change of behavior change is, you are telling it in the behavior rules. You have the sources which are confirmed, which are the inferred sources from the files that you are given and the test case that it is supposed to read, and the unknowns are the behaviors that you are now adding with the task. So before asking for code, like we mentioned earlier, you should have the task brief. It should be clear. This is your checklist. So you should have a very clear task brief. You should have all the relevant files inspected. You should know where all the changes needs to go. That includes the test files, the verification files. Okay. What are the AI what are the unknowns that the AI says that they are still unknowns, and you have given that relevant information. Okay, and what is the next plan of action? Okay, if everything is done, there are no unknowns, let's build the plan. Okay, so this is a quick draft of handoff prompt. Okay, so this prompt you can give to the AI to build your agent context packet. Okay, the prompt goes as, using this task brief and source grounded context packet, you give the context packet. Okay, and you build a plan. Okay, which files to edit, what are behavior rules. So this prompt is going to help you build the plan. Now that you have the task, you have the behavior, all you need to do is now build a plan and then let AI agent implement it, because now you have every single thing that you need to give to the AI agent to implement this feature. You have all the details, you know what to build, you know where to build it. Now you just need to finalize the plan and execute that plan. And this prompt is going to help you build that plan. So, quick recap. You first build a task brief, and then you build a task context, which is we are also calling agent context. The information you are giving is called a context packet. Okay, and once you give all that information, you let AI do the discovery, you let AI discover the discoverable context that we were talking about, where you let the AI agent figure out okay, these are the things that are still unknown. You help fill in the blanks of those unknowns, and then you go on to building the plan. Okay, so in the next episode, we are done with all the planning. In the next episode, we are going to actually start using AI to make the changes to our project, to build the changes that we want to build. Okay, so we have done all the theoretical work, we have done collected all the necessary information that is required to implement any said feature, and now with everything ready, we have the task, we have the context, we have the plan. Now we are going to make the changes in our next episode. So that's it for this episode. I hope everything is clear. If you have any questions, you can drop a comment down below. You can join my Discord. The links are again in the description, and it would be really helpful if you would subscribe to this channel, because that really helps me out. And I hope every one of you have a good day ahead. It is it is the end of the day here in India, so anybody from outside, have a good day. Everybody else, for everybody else, good night, take care. And this is Kshitij Agarwal signing off on your channel AI Coding with K. Bye bye.